And then becoming a more high profile track coach here, and coaching athletes that are competing at the very top level of track, I started talking behind the scenes to the best track coaches in the world. And they're all saying like bicarb is indispensable. And sure enough, I mean, and again, the hard part with all of these discussions, and I just want to be upfront about it, becomes the fight for clean sport, right? Because on the track this year in the 800 meters, we have seen a fundamental shift in performance profiles to the faster end of the spectrum, right? Like I think 11 of the top 20 times ever have been run in the last year, whereas before they were almost always 10 years or plus old. And we know what happened 10 plus years ago. So I don't want to bury my head in the sand, and I'm an incredibly devoted advocate to clean sport because all of this stuff is stupid without it. And it's at the forefront of everything. But if there is more clean sport, and I mean, I like to think there is. Like, I think if anything, my result makes me less of a skeptic. Like, I was always the guy that was like, Tadej Gotcha's power profiles don't make sense. Like, I'm going to be kind about it, but I'm also not going to love him as much as I want to. But then I was like, well, if I do Leadville, maybe, and then people say things about that. Maybe it does show that there's a little bit more like integrity. Granted, ultras, obviously it's not as competitive. And I think someone is going to run 14:30 at Leadville eventually, but that's neither here nor there. If there's a driver on the track to me, other than the shoes, which have been around for a couple of years, I think it is bicarb. Like, I got great anecdotal data on myself with it and saw just a classic workout I've done a million times in our little neighborhood loop here in Boulder, 20 by 1 minute on, 1 minute off. And I went 375 meters farther on that session than I've ever gone before because I float the recoveries. And heart rate was the same as it was the last time I had done the session. So, some background, and on the track, it's being used so extensively. I think the question just becomes like, what are its impacts on like longer performance? And I think the part that people are missing is that it's not just like a hydrogen ion buffering tool. It's that there might actually be some mitochondrial benefits to its use and adaptation response, like signaling. A couple studies have pointed this out, that it might be a thing. So yeah, I mean, playing at the margins.
What's your protocol for it? I mean, how often, when and how, and what's the dosage?
I got bicarb in me right now, actually. We're recording this at,
you had it for breakfast.
Yeah. So I had it. The general protocol is 90 minutes to 2 hours before. I do it 2 hours before I train. And so right after we get off the podcast, I'm going to be doing my first threshold session on the uphill treadmill since the race. So I have it on board right now. That's why I'm feeling so good. It actually feels, yeah.
Sorry, it actually feels, keep going. My bad.
No, it feels a little strange when you first, it's not I wouldn't say it's a good feeling. In fact, it only really starts to feel good, I think, once you start to push a bit.
Are you using the Maurten commercially available one, or do you make your own one?
Yeah, I use Maurten. I don't trust my chemistry abilities, at all. Especially I've had GI struggles in the past. So, but what I do,
that's what I was getting at. Yeah,
Maurten's going to hate this. This is where it goes from being like an ad to Maurten to like not. Is I put my weight in, my body weight. So I order on The Feed, which is an American company that sells all the nutrition products, but I put my weight in as 300 kilograms or whatever the max is. So I get the Maurten that's like designed for a very, very large person. And then I give myself like a half serving or a little bit less. And then I mix it with a hydrogel that we get separately that's way cheaper because that stuff's expensive.
Yeah. Okay. So you sort of home make using the same principle.
Just cut a bit. No, I just get twice as much for the same price because I'm telling them I'm lying about my body weight. So make Maurten decrease the prices, Maurten, decrease the prices, bring this to the masses. It's like,
well, that's what needs to happen because it is wildly overpriced.
So wildly overpriced. And I don't understand why competitors haven't come in yet and just like done it. I mean, because like anyone listen, there's smart, brilliant business owners listen to this. Like, you create a bicarb supplement that harnesses the fact that this stuff is cheap as hell, and you're going to be a millionaire many times over. And it would help a ton of people because I do think that, I think more than any metric, anything we've talked about from a supplementary perspective, I think bicarb is what is changing the sport. And I think the ultra differences are underexplored, but I bet if we come back to this in 10 years, it'll be one of those things where we're like, how did we miss this? And, I'm motivated by Killian. I think other people will be motivated by me being open about it. One random little thing is that obviously it's a massive hunk of sodium in your body, which could have nasty health effects. But since I've started taking it, I used to think I was limited in long events because of cramping. And obviously cramping and electrolytes, incredibly contested field. That being said, I think we can look at Ironman triathletes and how they use sodium to understand that there's something we're not always seeing in studies for some people, not all. But since I started doing this massive dose of sodium before hard sessions and these long runs and races, I haven't cramped, which again, could be age, could be a million other confounders. But for me, it's like, I don't know, maybe we're seeing something.
Yeah, I've just made a mental note to myself as a business idea called the Science of Sport podcast supplement company, brought to you by Professor Ross Tucker and elite trail runner David Roche.
Oh, yeah.
We'll have 33.3% share in the business. You've already got that, so
I think if Ross sells anything, it's gonna be $1 billion company.
How do you use it in the race then as well? Do you take it midway or like every 20 miles, or what's the story there? Like, do you top it up or do you go one dose before?
I just one dose before. I had it to do. So there's an aid station that you hit at 37 and 62. And then in between that is the nasty mountain section of the course, which is just backcountry and hard. And so I had it there if I wanted. But I haven't experimented with it because I don't go that long in training. So I don't really get the opportunity to. I know Killian took it during UTMB, like during a hard part of it. But that's a place where like, I actually don't know if I'm ever personally going to get to test it because I don't go that long that often and I don't want to risk it. Particularly with the GI issues. Like if I'm taking in this many calories, how do I then balance that with putting something into your gut, which like the reason bicarb hasn't been used for a while is because of the GI issues. In fact, on Saturday after the race, okay, I believe in this stuff so much. And again, I'm also, I'm not a scientific thinker when it comes to my own feel sometimes, in the sense that I'm prone to the placebo effect, prone to, all the things everybody else is. As a coach, I hope I am, but as an athlete, I'm just going on vibes sometimes. And on the Saturday after the race, I did a little jog with my pregnant wife. And before that jog, I had some bicarb because I'm like, oh, well, I want to get my body going again. And if it has an adaptation response change, I want to have that. But I accidentally took the entire thing without thinking about it because I forgot my protocol. And so it was the first time I'd ever had like the experiences that people talk about on bicarb, where I don't want to describe them, but it is not a pleasant thing to have to stop 47 times on your run, which is like literally about how many times I stopped. So